Well, let me get comfortable here. And good afternoon, everybody. This is Frank Fry, the Gaming Geezer. And today I am going to do a review of what has become one of my all-time favorite role-playing games. And in fact, it's probably my favorite fantasy RPG, and that is Lord of the Rings, The One Ring, Adventures Over the Wild, to give it the full title. It is from Cubicle 7, who have published some great games. Doctor Who role-playing game, Primeval role-playing game, and was designed primarily by a very talented fellow named Francesco Nepatello, who I've had the pleasure of meeting and talking with. Francesco is from Venice, Italy. Tremendous talent and a real feel for history. Now, what makes this game, well, we'll get into that in a moment. Let me give you some background. I have played several different Lord of the Rings games from different companies. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not a real scholar / fanboy, but I did enjoy the books. I read The Hobbit while I was in Vietnam. I read the trilogy during the early 70s. I loved it. Middle Earth was a tremendous world. It was a tremendously exciting, to me anyway, setting. And I thought it was just remarkable, very appealing. As far as the books go, unfortunately, as time went on, I actually tried to go back to reread them. And what had been so enchanting the first go-around seemed somewhat verbose to the second go-around, perhaps because I already knew what was happening. Anyway, I saw the Rankin Bass animated version of The Hobbit, and I think I played my first Lord of the Rings RPG, I believe. It was probably MERP, Middle Earth Role-Playing from Iron Crown Enterprises. Pretty good. Some of their background material is fabulous. If you get a chance to get your hands on it, I highly recommend it. It's very good stuff. Well, then came Last Unicorn Games / Decipher Games. And this was once the movies came out. And I love the movies. I really do. God, they are good. I enjoy them. Now I can watch them over and over again and not, feel, like, wow, kind of verbose. But I really, I enjoyed the movies. So the Decipher game came out. And I played in 2 campaigns run by my 2 very good friends, Steve Scribner and Mike McCartan. And I enjoyed myself immensely. They were extraordinarily well run. But then, of course, both these guys do a lot of work on it. Both Mike and Steve are scholars, basically, Tolkien scholars. And it was just tremendous. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's one of these campaigns that you just really, you're just sorry when the story ends. Really, you are. It was that good. We played in Steve's, we did an earlier age, I think it was the earlier Third Age, the Fall of Fornost and the Fall of the North Kingdoms. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. And then when Mike ran his, it was the War of the Ring. But we were not, the Fellowship of the Ring. We were a separate group of adventurers who made quite a mark for themselves anyway. Both of these campaigns were excellent. This is another one in Mike's campaign where you're like, damn, it's over. You know, and we still talk about it today, and it was, I think, 2011. You know, we're looking at 3, 4 years ago, and it's still fresh in people's minds. We still talk about it today. And then once Lord of the Rings, The One Ring came out, which I believe I picked up at Gen Con. I got first edition, The One Ring. Slipcase with 2 books in it, the Adventures book and the Lore Masters book. But, you know, I picked these up, and I ran a campaign with it. Full-on story chronicle. One of the best I have ever run. A magical combination of players. Mike and Steve were among them. Also a shout out to Rich, to Jillian, and to Jared, who were just tremendous. It was a magical group, and we still talk about that today as well. It was healthy gaming at its finest. Everybody enjoyed it. Everybody showed up. And they got into character, and they got into the world. And it was really interesting. Okay, this came out. What a world it was, too, and is. What they did at Cubicle 7, what Francesco did, and the others, they took parts of Tolkien's world that Tolkien never really wrote about. Not that developed. They're barely mentioned. There's more mention of them in The Hobbit than there is The Lord of the Rings. And this is the area around Dale and Lake Town and up around there, and then down through that whole Wilderlands area. Very much an open book. A tabula rasa, if you will, in which you can scroll whatever kind of adventures you would like. Now, I also have the second edition. Just got it. It's a hardback. They've combined both of these books into one. However, what they didn't have with it is what I thought was one of the real joys of this. Yeah. Map of the Wilderness. And I'm going to try and unfold this rascal in hopes that we can, I don't make too big a fool of myself. Excuse me. But that you can see. This is magnificent. This is actually the Lore Masters map that you can track day to day. I mean, guys, this is actually a game where simply getting from point A to point B is a whole adventure in itself, and a pretty damned exciting one too. It can be that very much. The second map is the same as the first without all of this. It looks like the kind of map that your adventurers would have. All right, let's get into the game itself. This works excellently for, to me, one very basic reason. Rather than take an existing game system and bolt Tolkien onto it, which is what they did with Decipher games, it's what they did with Middle-earth role-playing. Instead of doing all of that, instead of doing that, which to me produced some, you know, you're basically, well, crap, it's D&D, basically, just the names have been changed to take advantage of the license. Decipher was probably a little better, but it was still a little odd. Okay. And it was fun to play, but A lot of that was due to the game masters and due to the players, I think. The system at times seemed a little forced. There was also way too much magic, in my opinion. Still, when you had this, this was all you had, you made the best of it. And then the One Ring came out. What makes the One Ring so superior to these other two, and they are good products, just this one's better, is that this was designed from the ground up for Tolkien's world, for Middle-earth, for playing in Middle-earth. This was designed, the mechanics, everything designed straight up for Middle-earth. Now, having talked with Francisco Nepatello, and I said, you could probably do this you do this for Viking Saga. He said, yeah, it's not that difficult. If you want to put the effort into it, I like it the way it is. But what you're doing with your, everything here is shaped towards making your character very much a denizen of Middle-earth. Now, for those of you that are not overly familiar with this, you can forget crap about alignments, because, guys, I've never cared for that, and I don't think I ever really will. It's probably my least favorite part of D&D, but enough of that. You can't, there are not a whole lot of player races, or as they call them, I guess heroic cultures, that you can play. There are not a lot of spell slinging magic. Magic in Middle-earth to me has always been more innate than overt. We'll get into a little bit of that later. The other is there are not really any classes, not the traditional D&D class. Each culture has its own take on professions or livelihoods, for example. Now, in the basic game, you get the hobbits, you get the bardings, you get the dwarves of the Iron Mountain, you get the elves of Mirkwood, the Sylvan elves, and you get the Beornings. Did I leave any? Yes, and you get the woodsmen. You get 6, count them, 6 races. Most are cultures, most of which are human cultures. You only have the elves and the dwarves as the non-humans that are player characters. 4 human and 1 dwarf and 1. But there is a tremendous variety in these cultures that will allow you to create a character. But I want to point out the thing is, this is going to be a Middle-earth character. This is going to be a character that could be, that's going to appear to be straight out of Tolkien, because that's how it was designed. Okay? That's how it was designed. And you can assemble your characters. It's a point-buy system, if you will. You put them together. You have various cultural blessings. You have various livelihoods, each one unique to the culture that you come from. There's not a massive arsenal of weaponry. Not a massive amount of armor. I think the most heavily armored people are running around in chainmail. It's mostly swords, spears, bows, axes, stuff like that. So you're getting pretty much, at least in this neck of the woods, a fairly I would say late Dark Ages, or as I prefer to call it, early medieval Europe kind of vibe in terms of what they have. Now, the interesting thing is, if you really look at those cultures, as you look at how they live now, you know, and you look at some of the places, some of them like Gondor and such, and you kind of think, well, how could people on this level of technology produce these wonders? Good question. And it gets answered, or you can answer to your own satisfaction. But enough of that. You have these choices, and if you get the screen, which I highly recommend, the Lore Master screen and the book on Lake Town, which is an absolutely great place to start, you also get an additional culture, and that is the people of the lake, who are unique from the Bardings, the men of Dale, who are unique from the Woodmen, who are unique from the Beornings. And now, oh, I forgot, the Hobbits. Those are the three. Hobbits, well, let's enumerate them and see if I can remember them. Come on. You play a Hobbit, a Dwarf, an Elf, a Barding or Man of Dale, a Woodman of Mirkwood, or a Beorning. That's 6, and then you add the Men of the Lake, that's 7. Now, some of the things that you can get if as you advance and are able to get some of these are what are called cultural gifts. These are very small magic. You could say they're magic if you want. They're very small things, but it's the something that makes you unique from your culture. And this is very important. Now, I cannot recommend, again, this is very good. These people will look like they stepped out of Tolkien's work. These characters. Now, I have on pre-order the Rivendell sourcebook, which will give you 2 more heroic cultures who are, in my opinion, a little more powerful, and that is the Rangers of the North and the High Elves of Rivendell. And I looked at them, I have the PDF, and I kind of scratched my head and I went, okay, we got the same problem, kind of, that we have in Star Wars. Who's the Jedi? And these are some very powerful and more advanced characters. But again, they can work in, they can fit in, and they're remarkable. I can't wait to get my hands on the hardback book. I know that somewhere down the line, I believe they are going to do the Rohirrim, the Riders of Rohan, as a heroic culture, and I think the men of Gondor as another heroic and playable culture. Cool beans, says I. They also have a very good bestiary filled with creatures. And again, you really don't have challenge ratings. Yeah, well, you've already heard my opinion on those. So, you simply look at the creatures, you look at your party, and you go, okay, this is what's here. This is what you encounter. Now, how do you react to it? Depending on how well they work together, they can, it depends on how they feel about standing up to it. You run into a Balrog, first thing I do is I run like hell. It's like, I ain't fighting this thing. Squish me like a bug. In my adventure, they ran into a very powerful monster, a hill troll. But the 5 of them fought together as a team, as a group, and they brought it down. I'm very proud of them, as a matter of fact. Anyway, how does the basic work? What do you do? Okay, it's basically a roll a d6, add the skill, characteristic. Yes, that's simple. And these are called the success dice. Okay, and you add them together to beat a target number. This is one of them. And whoop, boy. All right, there you go. This is the 6. And if you roll one of these, the 6 with the Tengwar rune on it, good things can happen. This one is called the feat die. It's a 12-sider. It goes from 1 to 10, and then this, the Gandalf rune, which means you just succeeded. Cool. Or it flips down to the Eye of Sauron, which signifies 0. Basically, this is the OSOD roll, OSOD, also known as oh damn. Anyway, that's what you do. You roll, you compare. Combat works the same way. They have a very interesting way of doing combat in which you take a stance, which allows you to do, you can do certain things. You can be in the front being brave. You can be in the back being brave, but you have a bow. You have a missile weapon, therefore you can engage the enemy at range. It's a good system and works very wonderfully. The creatures, again, are tremendous. You have, again, they take some things. Give you an example. One of the things that the designers of the game have taken is the Werewolf of Mirkwood. Okay? Now, the Werewolf of Mirkwood in the books is just barely mentioned. They've turned it into quite a terrifying entity. You take this bad boy down and, hey, you've done something. In fact, you accomplish, your adventuring, and you've done something. I would also like to point out that one of the most unique aspects of this game is something called the fellowship phase. It comes at the end of the year, at the end of the adventuring year, and in it your party can do all sorts of interesting things. You can get healed, you can collect treasure, you can sell whatever treasures you've accumulated, whatever. A lot of different things. You can rest up. You make friends. Say you winter over, for example, with Bjorn and his people. They like you. Now you've got a place you can come and stay if you need to rest up. There are also rules in the Rivendell book about how you can have your own place, your own holding, which I always thought was very interesting as well. And, all in all, it just fits with everything so well. You have an overland, when you go overland, for example, and you have each member of the party, a fellowship as it's called, has a specific role, such as scout, hunter, things like that. And it actually works. And believe me, having put people on these treks, just hiking through the wilderlands, trying to get to somewhere, can be an adventure in and of itself. One of the most fun things I remember of the campaign was watching this troop of 5 adventurers trying to get across a stream without falling in. It was intriguing. And the material that's come out for it is also very good. It's very high quality. By the way, this is the 2nd edition of the One Ring. It's the all-in-one book. My only complaint is, where's the maps? You got those really nice maps, and you also got a set of dice that went with the whole package. Now you have to buy the dice separately. This does not have those wonderful folding maps in it. Hey. However, this is very good, as I mentioned before. This is the Lake Town source book. It's tremendous. Got lots of good things in here. The first supplement, Tales from the Wilderland, is also, it's a very good campaign, and it's very good for people who are just starting out. The starting adventures are easy, and you get more and more involved. More and more things going on. I like this. The writing is good. It's just fun to read. Just like all of this is just plain fun to read. I have said that, people said, well, is anybody else going to write anymore in Tolkien's world? As far as I know, nobody has in terms of literature, but this is very good. They all are. And these are actually the two set. The Darkening of Mirkwood and The Heart of the Wild. This is basically an Atlas Gazetteer, and this is an adventure campaign that spans years. One more thing I would like to comment on. The artwork is beautiful, very powerful, very evocative as far as I'm concerned. It fits, it is gorgeous. This is a complete package. This, to me, is what I enjoy the most. This is my favorite fantasy RPG. I mean, I like a lot of others, don't get me wrong. I like D&D 5th edition. I like Savage Worlds, their fantasy companion. But this, to me, is it. Okay, everybody, that's all for now. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you all later. Everybody have a great, great weekend, and have fun, play games.